Since we're talking about signs this morning, I thought we'd do a little sign trivia. So we've got some sign pictures, and we're going to show them to you. And these are signs that you might see along the road. So this is a little bit of a driving test. And what we did is we found pictures that don't have the words. So I'm going to show the picture, and then you just need to tell me what's the sign for. All right. Based on my experience now, 7 years living in Colorado Springs, my understanding is nobody knows what these road signs mean. So if you yell at the wrong thing, there'll be no judgment. You're among peers. All right. So let's look at our first sign. What is that sign for? Yield. All right. Everybody got that one? All right. Then do it. All right. I don't know how many roundabouts I've been to where it's like that is a suggestion. No, this is actually a rule. You're supposed to yield. All right. So that's yield. We got that one. All right. We may not follow it, but we got it. Okay. What's this one? Slippery. Slippery. Road is slippery. All right. First time I saw that, I thought it meant don't follow that guy. All right. But no, slippery. The road is slippery, which we see when roads get wet or icy or snowy. Okay. We're doing well. Okay. Go to the next one. What's that? 2 words. That is good luck. Good luck. That's what that sign is. Yes. I found that there's no explanation other than said good luck. I don't know where that is, but I'm glad we don't live there. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Next one's a little easier. What's that? Cattle crossing. We see these all the time, right? Usually there's some kind of grate you got to drive over. All right. The cattle crossing. All right. Go to the next one. What's this one? Duck crossing. Ever seen one of those? Okay, it's usually near ponds. I once had a very bad experience getting on the on-ramp in I-25 in Castle Rock with a family of ducks that did not end well for the ducks. Yeah. We'll do that confession another day. But duck crossing. All right, go to the next one. And dolphin crossing, which means if you see that, you need to turn around. All right, because you are in the ocean. All right. So those are just some signs. Now, there are more signs, of course, stop signs and that kind of thing. All those signs on the road are to let us know what's ahead, right? Maybe you've seen the sign for falling rocks or an avalanche or whatever. It's to let us know what's ahead so that we can be prepared, so we don't hopefully have an accident. Well, the signs that we're looking at in this series for the next 8 weeks, the signs that we're looking at, I'm going to tell you, are more important than any danger you might be driving into. It's more important on even where you're going or how bad it can be, because the sign that John is pointing to is something very, very big. And it is what his entire gospel is about. So if we had John here today and we said, John, give us the summary of what your gospel's about, he would show us one verse, actually 2 verses that he wrote at the very end. So let's go to John, go to chapter 20, verses 30 through 31, and John's going to tell you what these signs are all about. Why does he put these signs into his gospel? And it's simply this. This is John. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So, John, why did you put 7 signs into your gospel? Why did you put 7 signs into this account of the life of Jesus? So that you would believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the anointed one. In Greek, the Christ, right? He wants you to know, pay attention. These aren't just little stories I'm throwing in here for your amusement. They are what? Signs. Signs to point to Jesus as the Messiah. So that's what we're looking at today. We are looking at the signs. So now, most likely, you've heard this story before about Jesus changing water into wine. In fact, it's believed it was the first miracle that Jesus ever performed. But let's give a little bit of background on what's going on at this time. So before we jump into the reading with John chapter 2, let's look a little bit what's going on. Now, this takes place early in Jesus' ministry. We believe that Jesus, when he was 30, began his ministry there in Israel, and he did it for probably 3 years. This would be early in year one. It's so early in his ministry that he probably doesn't even have his 12 disciples. Because if we look in chapter 1, we'll see that he only has 6 disciples. He only has half the team at this point. All right. He's got Peter and Andrew. He's got James and John, which many scholars believe is the same John who wrote this book. And then he's got Philip and Philip's friend Nathaniel, also known as Bartholomew. If I was Nathaniel, I'd go with Nathaniel. All right. So he's just got the 6. All right. He's got his 6 disciples. This is early in his ministry, and they are in this town called Cana in Galilee. Cana is probably a small area, a small town. And we know that one of his disciples has just joined, Nathaniel. He just joined, and this is where he's from. He's from Cana. So in Cana, they're at a party. And what kind of party is it? It is a wedding. It's a wedding. And besides Jesus and his 6 disciples, who else is at the party? His mother, Mary, right? Mary's there. So we got Jesus and his disciples and Mary at this wedding party. Let's talk about this wedding party. Because of the nature of my position, I get to do quite a few weddings. All right. I get to go to lots of weddings. And most weddings that you and I have been at are probably a 20, 30-minute ceremony, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less. And then there's a couple-hour reception. Sound about right? A Jewish wedding, how long would that be? Oh, usually 7 days. Now, for those of you that have ever paid for a wedding, just think about that. 7 days, right? 7 days. It's a 7-day party, a 7-day affair. And you invite all these people. And there's a very strong possibility that Mary was part of the planning committee for this wedding because of what happens later and her role in it. It seems like Mary's got a little more responsibility than just a guest at the wedding. In fact, some scholars believe that perhaps the couple getting married was a relative of Mary's. It's possible, but it is a long, long party, 7 days. And what happens at this party that goes from wonderful party to disaster? They run out of something, don't they? What do they run out of? The wine. They say, well, what's the big deal? Let's go get some more. Okay, this isn't today where there's stores everywhere where they can go and buy things. And remember, this wedding is 7 days long. We don't know exactly where in the scheme of things it is. Now, it does say on the 3rd day. We don't know if that means the 3rd day of the wedding or the 3rd day after Nathaniel became the disciple. But most likely the party's been going for a while because they've drank all the wine. How many more days are left? We don't know. But it's not like you can just run out to the store and get some more wine and show up. This is a lot of people and who need a lot of wine. So what are they going to do? Well, they're just going to tell everybody to go home. Hey, everybody, stop drinking. If they did that, that would seem very shameful because a big part of Jewish culture is hospitality. And you would be seen as one of the worst hosts of all time if you had a wedding and you ran out of wine, because wine was the drink. There was no Pepsi, there was no Coca-Cola. They had wine and it was all gone. It would also be considered bad luck for that new couple. Bad luck to begin your marriage by running out of wine. In fact, you could say that people would leave a wedding where they ran out of wine, and what would they be doing? Whining. This is why I do what I do. All right. So let's talk about that problem, because I think John makes this very, very understood from the very beginning. This is a big problem. And so this is why we think Mary must have had some part of the planning. Because if we go to the 2nd verse, or go to the 3rd verse, excuse me, what does Mary say? When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, what? They have no more wine. Now just imagine you're at the party, glasses are empty, people are looking around feeling thirsty. Mary comes up to Jesus and says, they have no more wine. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Yes, we see this. Now, here's the question. Why? Why does Mary tell that to Jesus? Why does she go up to Jesus, her son, and tell him they have no more wine? Is she just wanting to pass on the information, saying, hey, Jesus, maybe there's another wedding happening down the road and they've got wine, so you might just want to take your 6 guys and go? No. She's going to Jesus because she knows her son is special, doesn't she? Now, there is no account anywhere else in Scripture that Jesus has ever changed water into wine. She probably has no idea that he could do this, but the thing is, she knows he's special. Remember, she was there when the angel came and told her that she was going to she would be the mother of the Savior. An angel announced it to her, a virgin, a young woman, that she was going to be the mother. She knows her son is special. She was there when the wise men from the east made this long journey to come and worship the new king. She was there and she knew her son is special. So she goes to him and tells him they have no more wine. And how does Jesus respond? With probably one of the most strange, hard to understand quotes from Jesus in all Scripture. Verse 4, woman, why do you involve me? Now you can read that a lot of different ways. If you put different emphasis, woman, why do you involve me? Woman, why do you involve me? However you say it, does Jesus sound very nice there? No. Now, I don't know about your relationship with your mom or your grandma or whatever female was kind of in charge of your life. If I would have said that, you know what my next move would be? To duck, right? Or to run. Pretty much at any age, you call your mother woman. Woo! All right? Husbands out there, do not take notes on how to speak to your wife based on this verse. All right? Now, you think, wow, that is harsh. Jesus, come on. This is your mother. Now, I did a little bit of study on this because this little quote has caused a lot of controversy among people because it kind of makes Jesus seem rather rude to his mother. And a lot of the research shows that in the Greek, woman, when you translate it, it doesn't translate quite as well because it's not really a term of disrespect. In fact, a lot of people said it could be translated more like ma'am. So it's still polite. But then you're like, well, why would Jesus call his mom ma'am? Like, what kind of weird formal relationship do they have? And a lot of people believe the reason he says woman, the reason he says ma'am, is because that Jesus is establishing that he has to pull away from his family to begin his ministry. And we see this later on when Jesus's mother and brothers come to see him. He has to pull away because now he has to fully embrace being the Son of God. So this woman, why do you involve me, is not as harsh. It's establishing that Jesus is now beginning his mission, his ministry, that it is now time. And the reason we know it's not so harsh is because of how Mary's going to respond next. But first, let's finish that verse 4. Woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied. Then he says, my hour has not yet come. If you're taking notes, you might want to put a little underline, little asterisk, little arrow, a little highlight on my hour has not yet come. We're going to come back to it in a little while. All right. But how does his mother respond after Jesus says, woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come. What does she say in verse 5? She looks at the servants and say, do whatever he tells you. Does that sound like somebody who was offended? No. It sounds like someone who understands that her son knows what he's doing, that her son is on a mission. Do whatever he tells you. It doesn't sound like an angry mom to me. It doesn't sound like a mom who is offended. So she tells that to the servants. All right, servants probably say, okay, sure. Then what happens? Well, then the story gets really wild, right? We go to verse 6. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Now, these isn't just a little bucket. These are barrels, right? Big stone barrels full of water. And what are they used for? Ceremonial washing. This would be part of the law. All those 600 plus rules on how that we get right with God? How do we follow the rules? Well, one of them is we cleanse ourselves. And it's not just we wash our hands, which they did, and their arms, which they did, but it was also used to wash the furniture. It was to just wash everything. And so most likely there had been a lot of washing because there's 6 of these huge barrels of water. Now the barrels are empty. So what does Jesus do? Jesus tells the servants, remember the servants who've been under the instruction to do whatever he tells you by Mary. He looks at them in verse 8, or verse 7, excuse me. He said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. Now, how would you like to be one of the servants at that point? They're like, are you kidding me? We just emptied these things this morning. We did all this washing. Now you want us to fill them? I know your mom just said do whatever he tells you, but come on, buddy. How about you and your 6 friends do that? Because remember, is there a faucet in the house they can just turn on and fill these things? No, these things are huge stone jars. There's not a hose they hook up. They're probably taking buckets out from the well and filling this thing. And who knows how far the well is. This is a labor to fill up these 6 jars. But they do it because they're supposed to do whatever he tells them. So they fill them up. We don't know how long it takes. We don't know their attitudes, but they fill them. They fill up the 6 jars. Then we go to the next verse. Verse 8. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. Now, who's the master of the banquet? Well, some will say he's the head servant. Others will say he's kind of like the master of ceremonies. He's the person that's in charge of making sure this wedding is going well. So in our modern day, I was trying to think, what would that be like? It's kind of like the DJ at the reception, right? He says, all right, now we're doing the father-daughter dance. Everybody gather around and watch this awkward dance between the father and daughter, right? He's the one who's trying to keep the party going. He's trying to just keep it moving. Maybe they hired him. Maybe he's a friend. Maybe, he's well known in the community. He's the master of ceremonies. So they bring him some of this water. These servants scoop it out. Maybe they have a cup. Maybe they have a pitcher, whatever, a ladle, and they take it over to this master of ceremonies. They give him the water. And just think about those servants. They're like, we're giving him the ceremonial washing water. What is this guy thinking? But they do it. And when the master of ceremonies gets the water, what happened? It's wine. And it's not just any wine, is it? If you go to verse 10, look what he says about it. He says, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the what? The best till now. So this isn't just some wine. This is the best wine. The best wine. This isn't just, hey, the party's going on too long. Get out the cheap stuff, the stuff in the box that came off the clearance aisle. This is the best, the very, very best. And he can't believe it. And the servants can't believe it. And what happens? Verse 11, Jesus's disciples, they see what's happened. They've watched this whole thing from the beginning. And what happens? What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory. And his disciples, what? Believed in him. His disciples believed in him. All right, so that's the story. You say, I knew that. I got that from Rufus. I'm good, right? But here's the thing. How is this a sign? How is this story a sign? Because think about it. How many people know what Jesus did? Well, there's 6 disciples, Jesus, his mom, and then some servants. Do all the other people at the party know? Nope. Does the master of ceremonies know? Nope. All they know is the wine was out, and now they've got really good wine to drink. That's all they know. They don't know about the miracle. So how then is this a sign if such a small number of people are the only ones who know? How can this be a sign to point that Jesus is the Messiah? How is this pointing to something much, much bigger? Now, let's talk about it for just a moment, because I want to go back and do some Old Testament. All right, we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go to the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 25, verse 6. Now, Isaiah is one of the Old Testament prophets. Isaiah wrote about the birth of Jesus 700 years before Jesus was born. And it wasn't because Isaiah just took some great guesses and they came true. Isaiah was inspired by God. He's a prophet of God. Prophet of God is less about making predictions. It's about speaking God's truth. And God's truth was that a Messiah was coming. And Isaiah writes about that, but he also writes about when God will come to this earth, what it will be like. And he talks about this and he describes a banquet. So Isaiah 25, verse 6. Let's take a look. On this mountain, the Lord Almighty, again, this is talking about when God is present, will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged what? Wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines. Wine. The best food. So they're serving lobster, they're serving prime rib, kosher prime rib, and cheesecake. But what are they drinking? The best of wine. All right, now that's Isaiah. Now let's go to another Old Testament prophet. Let's go to Amos. Amos chapter 9, verse 13. Amos 9, verse 13. Little known fact about Amos, maybe you didn't know. Amos was a prophet. He was a shepherd, but he's also a great baker. He made some incredible chocolate chip cookies. They were well known throughout Israel. They were famous. All right. Are we there? Verse 13. Okay, Amos 9:13. Amos is also describing. He's describing when God is present, this day of the Lord. And what does he say? The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. New what? Wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. Now, this is just two passages from two Old Testament prophets. What is with all the wine? Because wine is a symbol of God's presence. That wine will be dripping from the hills, the finest wines, new wine, because the people will be celebrating, they will be feasting because God is at work. So, let's jump back to our story in John chapter 2. What is Jesus's first miracle? He's changing water into wine. And is it just wine? No, it's the best wine. Wine. The feast of wine, the finest of wines. Does that sound like Old Testament prophecy? Yes. Jesus is announcing, I'm here. I am here. I am here. I'm the one you've been waiting for. I'm the one Isaiah talked about, the one Amos talked about. I'm the one you have been waiting for. I'm here. This isn't just some impressive party trick. This is Jesus announcing that he is the Messiah. So we could say, when we look at this story, the story that you've probably heard hundreds of times, we look at that and we say, there's something much bigger. John says this is a sign. Well, John, what's the sign? Wine is the sign. Wine is the sign, because it's more than just Jesus wanted to make sure nobody had an empty glass or was thirsty. Jesus is announcing the Messiah is here. So wine is a sign. But there's more. There's more clues that John puts in here, because John wants to proclaim. He is shouting at us this morning saying, pay attention. This miracle is a sign. And it is a sign that Jesus is the Messiah. And what is the greatest sign that Jesus is the Messiah? He's going to die on a cross. And so let me connect this story to the cross, because there are some direct connections between the wedding feast in Cana at the beginning of Jesus' ministry and Jesus dying on a cross on Calvary at the end of his ministry. There is a direct connection. And the first of those connections is his mom. His mom, Mary, is the connection from the wedding to the cross. Do you know that Mary is only in John's gospel 2 times? This is one. What's the second? John chapter 19, verse 25. She's only in there twice. Other gospels, she's mentioned more, but John only puts her in 2 times, chapter 2 and chapter 19. Well, let's go to John 19, 25 and see the only other time that Mary is in John's gospel. What's happening? Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. What's happening? Jesus is on the cross. Jesus is dying on the cross, and who's there? Mary. John's showing us Mary at the first sign, the first miracle of Jesus' ministry, and then Mary at the cross. That's the only 2 times that she's in the gospel. A connection from the wedding to the cross. Now, there was another line that we said we're going to get back to. So if you go back to verse 4, that famous woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied. That last part, I said to highlight, underline that. He says, my hour has not yet come. What is he talking about with my hour has not yet come? You think, well, maybe he's got to wait. He's got to wait to make this water into wine. He's got to wait to do something. It wasn't the time. But Jesus uses the same language in John later on when he's talking about something else. Maybe you've heard him talking about his hour before. If you go to John chapter 12, verses 27 through 28, he's going to talk about his hour. So again, John 12, 27 through 28. This is Jesus. Now my soul is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. What's Jesus doing? He's predicting his death. He's predicting the hour of his death, when he will die on a cross, when he will be crucified. My hour has not yet come. Do you see the connection from wedding feast to crucifixion? It's all a sign. John's saying, pay attention. This is important. This is sign number 1. He is more than just a rabbi at a wedding party. He's more than just the son of Mary. He's more than just the leader of 6 disciples at this point. He is the Messiah. And there's one more. Now, there's lots more we can talk about, but I want to just point out one more. Go to verse 1 of chapter 2 of John. John 2:1. What day did this wedding take place? 3rd day. 3rd day. Now, what event happens on the 3rd day? Jesus dies on a cross, and on the 3rd day, what does he do? He comes back to life, his resurrection. Okay? Hopefully you're going, what? Now, some might say, well, that's just coincidental. That's coincidental. Well, here's the thing. The Bible is full of a lot of coincidences. It's probably the most coincidental book ever put together. Just imagine if it's not a coincidence and there was someone who had a plan from the very beginning. From the beginning of time, he knew how this would all play out, that he would send his son, who would begin his ministry, who would perform his first miracle at a wedding party, turning water into wine, that he knew that later on that son would die on a cross. And then on the 3rd day, his son would come back to life, proving that he was victorious over death. Coincidence? I don't think so. God is at work. Now, there are lots of signs. If you want to do some research, you can see all kinds of parallels. You can see a parallel about Moses' first miracle. Oh, by the way, what was the first plague in Egypt? Moses turns water into blood. What's the first miracle of Jesus? He turns water into wine. Okay, just give you a little bit to think about. There's all kinds of things we can see here. But here's the thing. John, if he was here this morning, he'd be jumping up and down saying, don't just dismiss this as some nice little story. What is this? This is a sign that Jesus is the Messiah. Don't miss it. Pay attention, because this Jesus is going to change the world. You know, when I was a kid in school, perhaps you had this instruction too. They taught us that we need to drink more water. And growing up on a dairy farm, I drank a lot of milk. But we weren't always real great about drinking water. And part of the reason is we had well water. I don't know how many of you ever had well water. Depends on your well. Our well didn't taste very good. All right, kind of hard water. I didn't like drinking water. And they told us you need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. And as I got older and started playing sports, I realized I need to drink more water. You can't just pull out a bottle of milk at halftime and down it. It does not work well. All right, speaking from experience. All right, so how was I supposed to drink more water when I didn't like our water? Well, I learned at a pretty young age, maybe you learned this, you can add things to water to make it taste better. And usually at our house, it was powders, right? We did the Kool-Aid, we did the lemonade, but my favorite powder to add was Gatorade powder. How many of you ever had Gatorade powder? Not Gatorade, but the powder. You put the scoop in, you mix it up. I thought it was the most magical substance ever invented, because I had this glass of water, this glass of well water that I didn't really want to drink. And I take my scoop out. I like tropical punch Gatorade. And I put it in, I stir it up, and boom, that water changed. It wasn't the well water anymore. It was now Gatorade. It was a different substance, had a different taste. And according to every Gatorade commercial ever made, it was full of electrolytes, which would make me a better athlete, right? Because I know from all the commercials, if I had a 2-inch vertical, I drink some Gatorade, I am hanging with Michael Jordan, right? Or at least that's what they told me. So there I'd have my Gatorade. It started as ordinary water, but then it changed into a brand new substance, something that I enjoyed, something that was exciting, right? My water didn't have commercials with Michael Jordan, but the Gatorade did. Now, why do I bring that up? Because that's what Jesus is doing. Jesus shows up and he says, you got water. And what are you using the water for? You're trying to clean things. You're trying to make yourselves pure. And yes, that water can take the dirt off your hands. It can take some of the dust off the furniture. But how clean is the person who's washing with water? Because the water might clean on the outside, especially if you have a little soap, but how about the inside? Does the water cleanse the mistakes and the failures and all the problems the person has? Nope. The water just makes you look a little bit cleaner on the outside, but on the inside, still filthy, still dirty. So Jesus says, that's the old, but I'm here for something new. I'm here to change everything. And I'm going to take your old ceremonial washing water, the water that you could dump jar over jar over jar, you could rinse and repeat, and it's still not going to clean on the inside. And I'm going to change everything. I'm going to do something new. And I'm going to come and I am going to change lives. I am going to make something new. I'm going to take your old ordinary water and I'm going to turn it into the very best wine. And later, instead of giving you wine, I'm going to give you my blood on the cross. Because you are not ordinary water anymore. You are new. You are made new. You are a new substance. Just like dumping that Gatorade powder changed it from well water into Gatorade, Jesus is saying, I want to change you. And I'm going to change you by dying on a cross for you. I want to change you. I want to change your life. I want to take something old and change you. So, friends, my question for you this morning is, why do we keep settling for old water? Why do we keep settling to just be old water? And maybe there's a part of you that says, I'm not just old water, I'm tainted water. I'm dirty water. I'm water that's full of mistakes and failures. And why would anyone choose the water that I've got in me? And if you don't hear anything else today, I want you to hear this. Jesus chooses you. Jesus chooses you. He chooses you. And he says, I want to do something new in your life. I want to change you. And I'm going to change you through my blood on that cross. It's a sign. It's a sign. What did John say? What did he say in verse 31? John 20, verse 31. What did he say? You can put that verse back up. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Do you know what kind of life that is? It's new life. It's Gatorade life. Turn to the person next to you and say, Jesus gives you Gatorade life. Turn to the person across and say, Jesus gives you Gatorade life. Because he wants to do something new in you. And you say, but I'm just old, ordinary water. I've got nothing to offer. Jesus says, no, I choose you. I choose you. And I want to do something new in you. So today, I like to sometimes give things to help you remember. So today I'm giving every one of you a package of Gatorade powder. Got 3 or 4 different flavors. You get what you get. You don't throw a fit when you get it. But whether you like Gatorade or not, I want you to know Jesus chooses you. That we're not settling for old water anymore. Jesus is the Messiah, and he is your Messiah. He is your Messiah. So Zach, you want to pass those around, bud? He'll come around. And as he passes those, let's also bring the communion cups. Maybe John or Greg, somebody want to grab those and bring them around. And we'll get into our time of Holy Communion. And as you receive, as we take this grape juice, as we eat that wafer, just know that Jesus is at work. He is at work in you. He is changing you, and he chooses you. He loves you. So right now, I'm going to invite you to stand. We're going to pray. Then we're going to do one more song and get into Holy Communion. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you that you have sent your Son, our Messiah, that he has given his life for us, that he sees our ordinary old waterways, and he says, I'm here to do something new. I'm here to change hearts. I'm here to change lives. Lord, help us to let Jesus go to work in our lives. Help us to not settle for old water anymore, to let Jesus do something new in our life. This morning, we give you the old water. We give you all our failures, our mistakes. We give you all the things that we cannot clean. We say, Jesus, do something new in my heart. Do something new in my life. Thank you for being my Messiah. We pray all this in your name.